All right, section 2.4, functions. Here are some vocab words to write down on your notes outline. So if you would pause your video and write these words down. All right, for our first problem, we're going to make a table and graph y equals 2x plus 1. So when you make your table, you are going to be using the same numbers every single time. So we're going to be using these numbers over and over again. So for our x values, we're going to use -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. And that's what we're going to use on our homework as well. So we plug in these numbers and solve. So you don't necessarily have to show your work, but I'll show you where these numbers are coming from. So y equals 2, plug in -2. So I would use parentheses to show that, and then plus 1. So 2 times -2 plus 1. Yes.
-3.
Yes, -3. And this, you might be using your calculator quite a bit today. The next one, y equals 2 times -1 plus 1. What's that equal?
-1.
-1. Y equals 2 times 0 plus 1. 1. Y equals 2 times 1 plus 1. 3. And y equals 2 times 2 plus 1. It's 5. Okay. So then we're going to graph these. Just where do we start every time when we graph? X, we start going left or right. We always start at the origin, 0, 0. So we're going to graph these points. They should be a straight line. And then you would want to connect the points with a straight line with arrows on the end, because technically this graph goes on forever. Okay, so we're going to practice the same thing on the next problem. We're going to use those same numbers. Only this time our equation is different. So -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. And we're plugging it into y equals 2x minus 4. So y equals 2 parentheses -2 minus 4. -8. Y equals 2 parentheses -1 minus 4. Y equals 2 parentheses 0 minus 4. So that's 2 minus 4.
So
-2. And then 0. And then I would graph it. So the first coordinate, -2, -8, is going to go off of your graph. So you could either estimate it or you could just not graph that point. Either one is fine. And then connect your points with a straight line and arrows. Okay, so one more together. So y equals negative x plus 1. We're going to use those same numbers for our domain. So y equals negative 2 plus 1. So what happens when you have a negative 2? Positive 2 plus 1. So you get 3. Y equals negative 1 plus 1. Y equals negative 0 plus 1. Just be 1. Negative 1 plus 1. 0. Y equals negative 2 plus 1. Negative 1. And then plot your points and graph. Okay, so I want you to do the next one on your own. You're going to use those same values for x. So you'll have to pause your video and go through this problem. Okay, so for your numbers, what'd you get for negative 2? Anybody?
Negative 5.
Okay, negative 1.
What?
You can just go down the list if you want.
Negative 2.
Okay,
1. 4. 7.
okay, and then I would plot that. So whenever you're doing these graphs, most of them are going to be a straight line. So if you end up plotting a point and it doesn't fall in a straight line, that should be an indicator to you that you need to check your math, that you probably calculated something wrong. Okay? So that's what your graph should look like. Let's look at the next one. So we're going to be graphing 3 minus x squared. So we're going to use the same numbers again. So y equals 3 minus parentheses negative 2 squared. So that would be 3 minus 4, which would be negative 1, yes. Y equals 3 minus negative 1 squared. So that'd be 3 minus 1, which would be 2. For 0, you would have y equals 3 minus 0 squared.
Negative 3.
3 minus 0, just 3. Y equals 3 minus 1 squared. So that'd be 3 minus 1. Be 2. Y equals 3 minus 2 squared. Negative 1, because that's 3 minus 4. So this is not in a straight line. This is actually a special kind of graph called a parabola. But you guys really won't work too much with these this year. You'll learn a lot more about them in Algebra 1. So it looks like it should connect with a V, but it's actually a U, and it's technically called a parabola. Okay, so on the next part, we are going to decide whether or not an XY chart or a graph is a function, and we're going to determine that. So looking at this chart, The way we determine if it's a function or not is we look at the x values, and if any of the x values repeat, then it's not a function. So do you have any x values repeating? No, so that makes this a function. Okay, so then the way we tell with a graph is we do something called a vertical line test. So this black circle is the graph. If we draw a vertical line through any point in the graph, if it touches more than one time, then it is not a function. So in this case, it touches 2 times. So that would make this a relation. So if it touches more than one time, it is not a function. So let's look at those next 2 examples on there. So number 5, if you look at that XY chart, do any of your X values repeat? No, so this would be a function. And number 6, so I have a graph. I need to draw a vertical line through it, and it can only touch one time. And it only touches one time. So this would be a function. Okay, so for your assignment, you're going to do page 68 and 69, and you'll need 3 graphs.